The thrust of this presentation is to take you through what we see at Axial as the way that the best of the buy-side source deals in the lower middle market. Our customer base at Axial is twofold. We serve brokers and bankers, and they use our software to sell businesses. So they use Axial software to drive the better sales outcome for their clients. At the buy side, which includes the ETA category, but really for us started out with professional private equity, they use Axial as an origination tool. They're building a funnel of target opportunities through Axial. So we have about 3,000 customers on the buy side now that use our product, and we've been able to distill a lot of the best practices that they use to find and win deals over 15 years. So the business is 15 years old. I started it in 2010 out of the ashes of the great financial crisis. And we've learned a lot along the way. So I look forward to getting into it. I'm going to try and move pretty quickly. I was telling Dominic earlier, there's a reason why TED Talks are 18 minutes. Much longer than that is usually too long. Feel free to stop me, and we'll definitely have some room for questions at the end. So just very quickly, what I wanted to show here, the folks from Rise wanted me to paint a bit of a picture of transaction activity on the Axial platform in Texas specifically. So in total, over the last 12 months, about 12,000 transactions have been attempted. 12,000 have not been closed, 12,000 have been attempted, and about 8% of that denominator are here in Texas. And I've got some other big stakes on here as well. And I will make these slides available so you guys can look at this after. This shows Texas deal activity in the last 12 months. And the way that we measure this is we look at the number of individual buyers who have submitted a bid on a business based in Texas. So that is what this chart is showing. And this is the investor overall interest in Texas, which also continues to grow. So this is the unique number of buyers on the Axial platform that have expressed an interest in buying a Texas business. So it's a little bit of a softer metric than the one on the prior chart. This gives a bit of a flavor for what is most interesting to buyers relative to what is most frequently coming to market. So this is essentially like a heat map of like where are the acquirers most interested relative to where the deal activity is occurring. So if you are looking for less interest, less competitive lanes of investment activity. There was a question in the prior panel about just how do we compete against buyers effectively. One way is to try and find, areas where there is less competition. There are obviously a lot of factors at play, but this is just a heat map that expresses the relative preferences of the buyers relative to the total amount of deal activity that's occurring in those same sectors. So as you can see, as an example, the top industry of activity is industrials. It's also the top interest among the investor category. So there's a lot of symmetry there, but in other lanes, you'll see that the symmetry falls away. What this seeks to illustrate is just how long the tail of M&A advisors are that are selling small businesses. So this represents not Texas only, but on Axial, there are about 3,000 sell-side M&A intermediaries who sell one business a year or more. And the turnover rate is quite significant. In other words, 10% don't return the next year to attempt a transaction. And so as a searcher for a business, as a buyer of a business, you have a lot of work cut out for you because there's many brokers out there who you need to interact with. And if you're not going to work with brokers, you have an even longer tail of business owners that you have to connect with. So there's a reason why the returns in this market are so attractive. Part of the reason why the returns can be so attractive is because it's hard. It's not easy to deploy capital in this part of the market. That's part of why the returns are so compelling, or at least they can be. I won't dwell too much on this, and sorry for the small font. What the best buy-side firms do who are building long-duration business development efforts, which is a little bit less applicable if you're just doing a one-time search, but they tier the intermediary universe, and they tier it according to categories that matter. What I've laid out here is like one of the more popular tiering frameworks that you will see a private equity firm or an independent sponsor use in order to think about how am I going to go and cover the waterfront of brokers and bankers that are selling businesses that are interesting to me. This takes time. It takes CRM. It takes information organization. It's not for the faint of heart. And it's gotten easier though. And I think even if you don't like apply this to the letter of a law, just understanding the general framework. But there are going to be bankers and brokers that are selling businesses way more frequently in Texas than others. That's probably a group that you should develop good relationships with. If you're focused on a specific category of business, there will be brokers that specialize in that category. That should be a tier one, sort of relationship for you when you're executing a search. So just thinking about territory design in the way that a sales operation tends to think about territory design makes a lot of sense when you are an ETA buyer of businesses. You can't apply the same amount of your attention equally across all of these different endpoints. It needs tiering. What this shows here very quickly is it just shows that only 14% of the tier one intermediaries in Texas represented 36% of the deals that were attempted on Axial. So again, just shows that like if you have the right set of relationships with portions of the market, you can secure a disproportionate amount of deal flow from it. It's not one-to-one and equally distributed across the sell side. I know I'm going fast. Feel free to ask me questions at the end, and feel free to look me up offline if you want to go through these slides more. This slide, I thought it was important to include this one, particularly for the Texas audience. So the headline here is pretty straightforward. If you're looking to buy businesses in Texas, you can rely on Texas relationships, but that will probably only give you roughly 50% coverage of the sort of deal activity in the Texas market. Many business owners running businesses in Texas are being solicited by investment bankers or business brokers that are not in Texas to be their advisor of choice when they sell their business. And many of those bankers and brokers are succeeding in persuading Texas entrepreneurs to partner with them in the sale process. And so many Texas businesses ultimately get sold by a banker or a broker who is not here in Texas. You can see it's roughly 50-50, 60-40. That was just like a bit of a canvas of data on Texas and Texas deal activity. I want to quickly get into these three concepts related to building a really good deal sourcing engine. Again, a lot of these come from our work with the professional institutional buy side. I think these concepts need to, in some cases, maybe get shrunk down a little bit with smaller budgets in the ETA world, but I think they still hold. So a memorable online narrative matters a lot. The number of search fund websites I've gone to where there is no picture of the searcher is too high. Well, your online presence, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's your website, wherever it is, you must create a face and put it to your name. You cannot be XYZ Capital Partners and have a lousy About Us page, no visibility on who you are. People do deals with people. They don't do businesses with brands, and particularly not well-known brands. This is Bill D'Alessandro. He is a fairly well-known buyer of pet food businesses. I've gotten to know him well. He operates very successful with a pet brands business, which I think he actually recently just sold a big holding company. But he's done a couple of things really well. He's very high visibility online. He's very specifically focused on the pet market. So anytime a broker is thinking about selling a business and it's a pet products company, there's this like natural memory of Bill and thinking about showing in that deal. So he's done a very good job of building an online narrative around who he is, being very visible and being very clear about what he's looking for. And yes, of course, he's running a holding company. He's been doing it for 10 years. Maybe you're just getting started with your search. So we'll come back to that comment. Obviously, the more time you have to work on this, the better. And I know you're on shorter timelines in ETA than you are when you're building an investment firm over decades. Permanent Equity, another excellent brand building private equity firm based in Columbia, Missouri. The founder was a marketer, a journalism major, so no surprise there. They've done a great job just producing content on their website related to the things that matter to them and the kinds of owners that they want to attract to their front door. Again, I think if I were in the audience right now, I would be, and I was thinking about doing ETA, I'd be like thinking, how could I spend the time to do all of this and build all of this sort of content? Blackstone, another example. This is this unbelievable job that they've done of sort of being a more accessible, more approachable brand. They have this incredible Christmas card and Christmas video that they do every year. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's actually very funny, and it helps humanize the brand and made Jonathan and a bunch of folks there much more approachable. What I wanted to show on this page is that searchers can do this. You can do your own version of this. So this is one of the members, a buy-side member of Axial. Stewardship Partners is the name of the firm. This is a picture of their website, right? He is front and center. It's very clear what he is offering at the top of the page. How are we different? Meet the team. What are we looking for? And he's begun to put some work behind the content that's on the page. So I don't think it's that hard for you to do this, and I do think the memorable online narrative gains a lot of steam when you put in a little bit of work up front to just declare who you are, why you're doing ETA, and who you want to attract to your front door. This is a page that just shows this is the online Axial directory. So if you become a member of Axial, we just load you into this directory completely for free. It's not a paid listing site, but this is another way to be found on the internet. This gets a lot of search traffic on the internet. So top search funds in Dallas, top search funds in Houston. And again, these are just ways that you can get found as you're thinking about sourcing. This is just a quick stat on the number of deals closed on the Axial platform. And we just tried to look at those deals and just sort of see what is the level of online presence that the buyers have. It's roughly 75% of buyers. So the buyers that have no website, or it's a very nondescript website, they think that it's cooler to be stealth. It doesn't really work that well. It's not really the way that things work in the market. As the prior panel knows, the seller wants to get to know you. The broker is going to be cautious about who they introduce to their seller. The more you can make yourself knowable online in advance of those conversations, the better. For those of you who that have not closed a transaction yet, but this is, I guess, maybe a little bit of a less applicable slide. But what I can tell you is, a number of ETA buyers who buy a business and then go on to buy more and more over the course of the ETA sort of journey, that has really changed over the last 10 years. It used to be you would buy a business and you'd focus on organically growing that business, and that was kind of the story in ETA. It's not quite like that anymore. There are plenty of organic growth stories in the world of ETA, but there's a lot of buy and builds. And there's a lot of buy and builds because more and more people are leaving private equity careers to do ETA. And so they're not operators by background or by trade. They actually have a pretty good transactional background. And so this slide this is a perfect example of someone. She left behind a corporate development career, and she's building a smart home IT services automation business based out of California. And she's an incredible marketer. She's an outstanding marketer. Every single time she buys a business, she announces a press release. Every single time she makes an acquisition, she's all over LinkedIn. And it just, that flywheel compounds. And now people know, okay, if there's a smart home automation, AV, IT services business, this is somebody who should be on my radar if I'm selling businesses like that. Again, with the first one, it maybe doesn't help that much, but with the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, you can build real momentum. So for those of you who are thinking about buy and builds, make sure every time you close a transaction, that's very clear. Don't hide it. Don't make it anonymous. Don't make it confidential. Get out there and make it visible. The world will come to you much more quickly if that's easily discoverable. Here's some other just examples of accolades that you can accumulate in the market. When I started Axial, there was no podcasts, there was nobody on Twitter focused on this. Just today, it's a much different world. So you can get out there and get online more easily. I don't want to dwell too much on this slide. I just think that there's lots of ways to get involved and enter the conversation today. I remember when I went on Twitter in 2010, I was I was typing in lower middle market, and there was no results, and I was typing in private equity, and it was KKR, and that was it. Go on Twitter today, there's just this incredibly robust dialogue going on around SMB acquisitions, SMB operations. So don't look at it with a skeptical eye. Go get involved and get into the conversation. This just shows the headline here is that hustling really still matters in the market as a buyer trying to buy businesses. And this, again, this is all Axial data, but I think it's representative of what you'll see when you're out in the market hunting for businesses and building a deal sourcing funnel. On Axial, the sell side gets to control whether or not you access the deal. It's not a bulletin board. The sell side controls access to you. And in some cases, the sell side will select a subset of buyers and approach them. And then they will say, if anybody else is interested, I'll let them come to me. And I'll stay behind this kind of like hidden cloak. And if I'm interested in what they have to say, then I will let them into the process. So we call those these buy-side inquiries. That's what we call them on Axial. And what you can see here is for those buyers who were initially excluded from a deal, who then decided to inquire and make a pitch as to why they should be in the conversation with the seller, the acceptance rates are actually pretty good. And yes, the search community is at the bottom of the list, but on average, 4.5 out of 10 inquiries is getting accepted, right? If you're a family office, which is sort of the apex predator in the market, obviously a higher acceptance rate. So when you're excluded from deals, you can work your way into them. It does take elbow grease. And on this page, I just show what we have seen work in that regard. So authentic messaging, if you say, I'm the search buyer, please let me into this deal, that's probably not going to work very well. But authentic messages that are customized to the deal, some sort of demonstration of your expertise in the industry, perhaps some sort of reference to your sources of capital and the surety of the capital. Lots of these things can work. So again, we'll go through them one by one, but takeaway here is hard work pays off, and through good elbow grease and good customized outreach, you can work your way to transactions that are more competitive, where the brokers are being more choosy about who they speak to. Third pillar, again, when I started the business, there were no vertical tools or horizontal tools that were particularly good for building a deal origination funnel. There is now a tremendous amount of horizontal and a certain amount of vertical software that has been built to serve the private equity and investors banking community. I've laid out a couple of sort of market maps here of some of the logos that I see being used again and again and again. In some cases by the ETA market, and in some cases some of this is too expensive and tends to sort of move on market. One thing that I will say is that when you get all these software tools, and some of them are cheap enough to be used by any of us, you can grab the blasting gun and really move very quickly with the blasting gun. There's a lot of blasting of business owners that's being done in the ETA community, and it is, as a business owner myself, I get a tremendous amount of that inbound. What I did here was show you an example of what a blast email to me looks like. And, the prior panel on the mind of the seller, a business owner isn't going to respond to this. It's not worth your time to send a message like this. So yes, buy data, buy the tools, use Grata, purchase email, but don't send emails to business owners like this. It's bad for the search community. It's bad for ETA. Makes you look, it just makes you look, really unprepared. And it's not really a scale game and a numbers game. In some ways it is, but this is just not particularly helpful. On the right side is just Grok's summary of the left side. Oh, it was fun because we're in this age of AI. The contrasting thing, this was a really good inbound to me, and I wanted to show you what it looks like when I get a good inbound, right? So PSG is a big private equity firm in Boston, big software buyers. And this is clearly a custom note sent out to me, right? It's the subject line makes that clear. They're expressing a thesis related to buying software businesses focused on the alternative assets category. And there's good color in the copy. And they talk about Dean Schaefer, who's an operating partner there. There's real meat on the bone, and it takes time to send a note like this. So my recommendation is your open rates will be very high, your response rates will be very high. You'll send a lot fewer emails, but if you're going to do a direct sourcing, if you're going to have a direct sourcing model, I would err more towards this. I think business owners will respond to it much, much better. The headline here was just resist the automation temptation that all of this software makes easy for you. So those are the three big ideas related to building it's a great funnel, a funnel that compounds over time, one that gets better as you achieve more and more over the course of an ETA journey. Online narrative, using your credibility, reputation, and compounding your achievements, and then it's not pen and paper and Excel spreadsheets anymore. There's good tools out there that can help you. Here are a couple of transactions that have recently closed in the state of Texas that were originated on Axial. I figured I would just share the logos here in case any of that's interesting for you guys when you look at the slides offline. Here are a couple of search fund case studies that are here in Texas. These are Axial clients or historical Axial clients. This is a free and open list of the sort of top 100 M&A advisors that are on Axial. We do a survey each year where we survey the buy side on Axial and say, who are the advisors that you like to work with the most? The ones that are the easiest to work with, run a good sales process, interact well, manage emotions between the buy side and the sell side well, put together good SIMs. So these are free resources for those of you who want to dive in and begin thinking about the deal sourcing funnel. These are some brokers on the sell side who have closed transactions with search funds. Maybe a parting thought for you guys, and then I'll take questions, is just, I would say that generally speaking, search is gaining ground in terms of its credibility with owners in the sell side. Category is growing. Brokers can get very frustrated because they really want to make sure that the buyer has capital, and they sometimes feel like, I'm hearing from all these MBAs and I can't stand them. But generally speaking, what I would say, having been in this market for almost 20 years now, it's definitely a better understood type of buyer by the brokerage universe than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's making progress. And the list of sell-side M&A advisors who are comfortable doing a deal with a search fund buyer or self-funded or funded keeps on getting longer, and that's exciting for everyone in this room. This is my contact information, a couple of useful links on the right there when you guys get a copy of the slides, and thanks very much for having me. It's great to be at Texas for you all. I stopped at 10 o'clock on the nose. Dominic said 10 minutes of questions, and then help you guys also get back on schedule with your agenda for the rest of the day. So happy to take questions, and otherwise happy to meet with you guys offline.
Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for coming here today. My name is Iris Salinas. I'm an investor and independent sponsor, and I was very thrilled by your trends in Texas. Can you comment on other national trends that you see by industry? I mean, which one are the fastest growing states and the top industries that you see closing deals in the last year?
Yeah, so for Axial data, what we see is industrials actually is the most significant category of activity on our platform. Part of that is an artifact of how I started the business. I was buying industrial instrument businesses in private equity before I quit and started Axial. And so a lot of the seed kernel of Axial were industrial businesses, industrial engineering businesses. And so even though 15 years has gone by, we still kind of have this disproportionate skew towards the industrials category. There are four major categories of activity where we see a lot of transaction activity: industrials, professional business services, healthcare, and consumer products and consumer services. Those are our sort of four major areas of activity. But yeah, industrial activity and activity across basically the whole southern half of the United States is where a lot of the action is. There's plenty of action in the north, but that's how it skews. That's how the data skews.
I'll take just one more question.
Peter, thanks so much for coming out.
Sure.
Name's Eric Sheeline, and I'm a marketer, so I love that like half your presentation is about marketing passion. I want to ask a little bit more about that specifically. It can't be a mistake that you focus a lot of your presentation on that. Is it because you're trying to give advice, and you see that's like a common mistake a lot of people make in communicating and marketing themselves, telling their story? Or is it that you see like stats are actually better for the companies and individuals that do a better job of that?
Well, I think, the deal making industry, I think, is interesting, right? It's a large transaction, right? Well, but when a business is being purchased, it is a large transaction. It's a high dollar transaction. It's a bespoke transaction, right? And it has this history of being all relationship based and kind of local and offline, right? If you went and studied private equity deals in the 1980s, there was no internet, right? And so there's no emails, and there were no LinkedIn profiles, right? And there was no SME Twitter, right? And so how did those deals how did they get created? They got created entirely in the offline world, in real life world, right? And we're now 25 years into the arrival of the internet, right? It's very mature and trusted computing platform. The world uses it. These transactions remain bespoke. They remain high dollar. And there's a tremendous amount of it that happens offline in the real world. But what has happened is the top of the funnel has moved onto the internet, or a lot of it has. And so I think if you look at the legacy approaches to deal sourcing, they were all in person. They were all conferences like this, right? And now you just have this more like omni-channel online and offline set of opportunities. And one of the most interesting things that I didn't mention this in the slides, but when a buyer registers interest in an opportunity on Axial and signs the NDA, the platform sends a notification to the sell-side broker saying, following buyer has registered interest, they've signed the ETA, this is a little profile of who they are, and we also include a link to their LinkedIn profile. And it gets clicked every single time. So you just have to understand that like the top of the funnel in the deal making business is online. And so who you are and whatever you're presenting about yourself and your organization online, that's where people are going first. You will have your day in the sun in person, but your ability to get across the table from someone in the real world is much more advantaged if your internet presence and your personal brand or your organization brand is understandable online. So that's what I think that's the big sea change that I think's happened in the last 10 years or so.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all.